Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining this victory edition. Today, Aaron Quinn, Anthony Prohaska, we have survived. There were tricks and treats. Aaron, how are we feeling?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, just for those watching, the little switcheroo Greg made at the end there because his OCD couldn't handle
you go
being on the
there.
wrong side.
Yeah, that's where you go.
And looked back up, and I was like, "Oh, he switched."
I saw it. I caught it. Honestly, guys, I thought this show was going in an entirely different direction. 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago, I thought we were going to get on here and just be in a horrible mood. I'm actually in quite a good mood. We can nitpick some of the stuff here, and there's definitely meat on the bone again to work on, but they covered the spread.
The Bills lead the league in deflating games where they cover the spread and actually kind of blow the other team out. It's
weird. So it wasn't perfect, and we definitely have stuff that we'll fight about all week on Twitter, but in reality, we got to take a quick step back and realize it wasn't. I mean, that first half was ugly, but then they ended up covering the spread and easily getting past the Dolphins for what was it now, a sixth time in a row? Seventh
in a row, most ever.
Fantastic.
Anthony, how did it feel? The roller coaster of emotions. Where are you now versus where you were maybe as the game was going?
I like to always remain objective with the wins. I think, because you look at things in the context of it, and is this sustainable going forward, and so on and so forth, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the old Bill Parcells adage, you are what your record says you are, and the Bills are sitting here at 5-2. We get another division win. Yep, a win's a win. It was ugly. I also think it, as deflating as it was, it's nice at times to know, we played awful for a while and then still came out with a 15-point win. So trying to find those little silver linings.
Look at the Bengals right now.
Bengals right now. But I mean, a win's a win. Sitting here in 5-2 would have been nicer if the Bills looked a little sharp, but got the win, and that's all that matters at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to keep things in context. That stretch in the second half where we'll talk about where it's 3 and out, long touchdown drive, 3 and out, long touchdown drive, 3 and out. They really showed what they were. That first half was, some hideous football that was only a 3-3 tie because of how terrible of a team Miami is. That would have been a first half deficit versus 25 other teams in the NFL. But those kind of things happen, and it's a shame to see them get off to a rusty, slow start coming off of the bye and not really immediately going for it. But ultimately, we'll get through what ended up happening here. But let's dive right in to what we saw in this game. And we'll start with, the man of the day, Josh Allen, 29 of 42, 249 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, another 55 on the run, and a touchdown rushing. Plus, his most impressive play on the ground was probably a candidate for angry run on Good Morning Football, where he converts a first down, and Aaron joked it actually made me swear on Twitter, which I barely ever do, and it was a pretty incredible run to be able to be there. It wasn't a perfect game. I thought that he was pressing a little bit and was going into some of the different, elements of the game, but ultimately you end up with 69% completion percentage, over 300 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. He's the engine that drives this bus, and he drove it to another victory today. Anthony, it's crazy how the bar is set for Josh Allen, where we're like, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 69% completion percentage, probably could have been better.
Yeah, it's weird how we've all of a sudden been like, what? Only 26 points? What? Under 300 yards throwing? What? Just the bar that's been set. And I thought Miami in the beginning of the game had a really good game plan. The Bills as an offense, but especially Allen, looked like they weren't ready for some of the looks that Miami were showing up front. They had a hard time adjusting to the blitz, whether it was Allen diagnosing it pre-snap or figuring out, what was coming post-snap. But Miami, to their credit, had a really good game plan. They looked more like the defense that was a top unit last year for them, but really nice course correction from Allen and the offense coming into the second half. Really nice to see that Allen started getting into that rhythm with Cole Beasley, started taking advantage of his legs on the ground, making athletic plays. And this is what happens in today's NFL. If you have a really top-tier QB, there's only so much you can do as a defense. And if you're not on point drive after drive, eventually that top-tier QB will get you. And Josh Allen did that today.
Yeah, it's almost similar to what the Bills were trying to prevent with Derrick Henry 2 weeks ago when we saw them. You let a team hang close, and same thing for the Miami Dolphins. If you allow...
Similar for Patrick's comment here about the Steelers game. We were just hoping for that click, and it didn't click that game, and today it did.
Yeah, and if you let a high caliber player get clicking, he can be the difference in a game. And absolutely, Josh Allen was. He had a pretty nice game, but you guys nailed it. Like, we're at the point now where we're so spoiled that 250 in the air doesn't cut it anymore.
What a terrible day.
Yeah, and he had moments. I agree with what you said. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I'm sure it'll get talked about later with coaching. Is it seemed like that whole first half, they really did not expect Miami to come out and show the looks that they were showing, and they struggled against the blitz, something they really haven't seen. We've seen the too high safety thing, drop guys back in zone, and hopefully we get the pass rush with 4. This was a lot of blitzing, and Allen saw a lot of it a year ago. He carved it up a year ago. It took him a half to get used to this, and then he really started to carve it up. I think you saw it, at the peak with that touchdown to Diggs. He knew that blitz was coming. It looked a little bit uncomfortable, but he knew it was coming. He knew where to go with the ball as soon as that blitz came out. And so it's nice to see him be able to course correct. It stinks. It took a little bit longer than we were all comfortable with, and you went into the half 3-3, but then it clicked for him, and he really came out and controlled the rest of that game and covered the spread for Vegas. A lot of people in Vegas happy with Josh Allen right now. So let's get right into running backs, because I think this is going to be a topic of conversation here all week on Twitter, of the way it felt in that first half of the Bills continuously going to the ground game, even though you weren't getting the production there. I tweeted this out, guys, and I want really your comments. There's not a whole lot to talk about the individual players right now, but more the philosophy of where the Bills are at with running the ball. A good friend of ours, Merck, good friend of the show, love his stuff on Twitter, talked about right now the Bills were over committing in that first half to the run. And I think it's a fine line between over committing and sticking to something that you believe from all your preparation leading up to the game that is going to work. There is a fine line between, hey, we're going to stick to what we think works, and over committing to it, trying to prove something. I think the Bills touched on that balance a little bit today. I don't think it was as egregious as fans felt in the moment of what they were doing offensively. I think there was probably not as many bad play calls as there was bad execution when we dive into the tape. I think that got a little bit, people get in their emotions. They say, what are we calling? Nothing's working. I think they walked the line a little close today, though, of sticking to the run a little bit further than I felt like they should, because then we saw in the second half when they did open things up and they put the ball in Josh Allen's hands, you take the ball out of his hands, that takes away a weapon on your team. We even saw it with the run game, 55 yards, best rusher of the day is Josh Allen. So when the offense isn't clicking, I feel like they overcommitted a little bit too much today. Great. What do you think? Am I off on that? So
I'm as big of a Brian Dable defender as exists. It was the crux of the ours and Drew Gear and the rock pile debate and argument last year of our big bet. Today was infuriating early on. I am a huge advocate of the things like Warren Sharp talks about with this early down run pass ratio. It should not be 100%. I'm not saying pass every single first down. There's a reason you want it to lean 70-30, 75-25 even, because of how much linebackers bite up, how effective play action is. And I really started to lay on it sarcastically in my game thread later on of, oh, look, wide open play action touchdowns because you went play action on first down. That sure was easy. It was really frustrating to see so many first down runs. That one, I don't mind if it's 70-30. You still need the 30%. You still need the 25%. You don't pass every single time. They can throw the second and long run play in the garbage. There is no reason to run the ball on 2nd and 10. The potential range of outcomes is so far slanted the other direction. I don't even care about the tendency breaker and that, yep, they know you're going to pass, but yeah, they do. It's okay. The fact that there were so many runs on 2nd and 10 was killing me. So, I get it. They're trying to set up play action. I know the statistical measures of you don't actually have to run the ball effectively to have effective play action, but I get the idea of setting things up. I was really frustrated early on. I'm glad they got out of it. They made nice adjustments. There were really good screen pass, ways there, and they ran the ball somewhat effectively. But the usage of the run plays got me today versus the effectiveness. The effectiveness was fine. We're never going to be a great running team. We're going to break a couple decent ones here or there. The usage got me today.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments completely, and I'll save some of that for more of the coaching conversation towards the back end. But yeah, the execution on the running game was frustrating. Nice to see what Zach Moss did, though, if we focus just on the running backs. Like, I liked what he did towards the back end of the second half on those nice little floaters from Josh Allen, making some moves in space. I thought he looked effective today. I thought Devin Singletary looked effective at times. So, our best running back is still probably Josh Allen. But nice to see that Moss and Singletary can be complementary when they get some pieces. But yeah, still a lot to clean up from the running game as a whole. But the passing game really started to make a lot of work and a lot of headway in the second half. And the wide receivers and the tight ends, I'll start with, the top wide receiver for the Bills today, Cole Beasley, 10 catches, 110 yards on 13 targets. Diggs was second with 5 catches for 40 yards on 7 targets. Moss was actually third, which was fun. 6 catches on 7 targets for 39 yards. But Cole Beasley, I love the adjustment that we saw in the second half, really starting to take advantage of the middle of the field, whether it was in man coverage on Nick Needham or taking advantage of the absence of Jerome Baker and taking, again, advantage of that middle of the field opening that seemed to consistently be there for the Buffalo Bills. Cole Beasley looked really good. Manny got open a couple times. Josh just missed him on that deep ball that Byron Jones made a good play on. We saw Diggs show up when he needed to. I think the biggest negative for the wide receiver and tight end grouping, I was a little disappointed in Tommy Sweeney's blocking. He got blown up on some pass pro. He got blown up on a run.
Should be a little expected.
Fair,
right?
Fair.
I expected the opposite. I expected him to be a good blocker and a frustrating receiver, not a pleasant surprise receiver and getting his butt whooped blocking.
Yeah,
I expected the other.
That's what it is. I'm okay. It's tough because I like the rustiness and how much he's playing and this and that, so on and so forth. But his calling card is his run blocking. And that's something, and not even run blocking, his blocking, period. So to see him get beat very bad twice were some eye-opening things to me. But he made some plays in the pass game, which was nice. I never thought I'd be sitting here in a game saying, man, the Bills really missed the presence of Dawson Knox. But lo and behold, here we are. But Cole Beasley showed up today. I hope this is also a nice little one for all the people on Twitter who were like, let's trade Cole Beasley at the deadline. We don't need him. We can easily just backfill him with anybody. His role is easy to just replicate. So, yeah, nice game from Cole, which, again, goes in that rhythm of it seems on week to week there's a different guy leading the Bills wide receiver grouping because of how strong they are and how this offense goes.
There's a different guy leading that grouping, but I'll tell you what, when they need a spark on this offense, the ball has to go to Cole Beasley. And I'm frustrated they didn't force feed him in that second quarter to spark the offense. It's almost every time. What is the thing here? Sign up for Cover One Premium subscription.
Signed up for a premium subscription at halftime.
So he's taking credit for the win.
Absolutely.
Hey, game changer.
Absolutely everyone who hasn't yet should sign up for a Cover One Premium subscription at the halftime of every game. We will therefore do better in the second half. It's on you if you don't do it.
Science. You can't argue
No, it's science. 60% of the time it works every time.
That's right. So Cole Beasley, though, I mean, anytime this offense is in a funk, he gets the spark. I said as soon as he had that first reception, what is it now? We've got P.S. Love the costume, Anthony, Greg, and Aaron. Shake my head. I'll never dress up again. My wife and I were talking about this morning. You'll never see me dressed in a Halloween costume again. Those days are behind me. We spend enough on kids' costumes and stuff like that. But anyway, let's get back to Cole Beasley here. I'm seeing squirrels all over the place, chasing squirrels here. He as soon as he caught that first reception and it was a third down conversion, you felt the little flicker of momentum kick on for that Bills offense, and then they fed him like 3 times in a row, and you knew it was on. And this is what he's been able to provide to this offense all the time. And so I hope Brian Daboll took notes on this. Sean McDermott's always taking notes on the sidelines. When the offense is stagnant for a quarter, I want to see them come out on a drive and just force feed the ball to Beasley, no matter who else is going. I agree with you. There's going to be top wide receivers for every game, but Beasley is the guy that just moves the chains on those third downs. They had conversions on a 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13, and another 3rd and 11. I think 2 of those were Cole Beasley. Like, that's pretty crazy that he can do that for the offense. So I'm super excited about Cole Beasley today. He took an absolute lap on anyone that was clickbaiting posts out there about his potential trade. This is silly. He moves this offense.
Yeah, I'll save some comments for him for our Uncle Jumbo Spotlight Player of the Game.
Oh, foreshadowing, I think they call that in writing.
But I will step into the blocking today, and I think It was the area we talked about with Marcel on Wednesday night, and I jumped on another Dolphins pod on Saturday and talked with our man Hassoum. And I said the only path where I could see Miami hanging in this game is that an already, average, maybe above average offensive line now missing a piece, and that now 2 or 3 moving pieces, which I literally said on the show, I kind of hope they just give Tommy Doyle or Bates some reps and don't do like a weird combination where they make 3 people switch positions, and they literally made 3 people miss positions, and they flipped over Feliciano, made him switch to put in Butker on the left side, and then made Williams move back to right tackle when he was finally starting to play some good ball at right guard. It is what it is, but Miami has some talent on the defensive line, and you saw them that even on the plays where they weren't getting to Josh for the sack, they were getting there to be able to compress the pocket, not let him step up, and then get their hands up in the passing lanes. There were multiple conversions to be had on guys that were open. They got balls up and batted them down, and that's not stereotypically a Josh Allen issue. We don't see a ton of batted down passes. He's usually very good at maneuvering the pocket, changing arm angles. That's also an easy way to get your quarterback hurt and being able to have guys hit the throwing arm as it's going forward. So, it wasn't the end of the world. There wasn't some, it was probably one of those games that Bills fans have complained about in years past where the Dolphins are going to look and they had no sacks and that it technically looks like they didn't have anything special of a game, but 5 quarterback hits, 5 passes defensed, and many of those were from the defensive line. 3 out of the 5 were defensive linemen, and I have a feeling when the grades come out and the pressure stats come out, they're going to look pretty good there. Add that into the iffy run blocking. I'm going to chalk it up as one game because of, again, 3 moving pieces. Hopefully Spencer Brown's back and they get back to that right side. But I thought the offensive line was a disappointment today and was a key reason that they were letting Miami hang in this game.
I'm out on John Feliciano.
Shock.
I'm frustrated with him. It seems all the time he's the guy that seems to be the weakest link, and we've talked about it a number of times, and I agree with you, Greg, that when you shuffle all these pieces, it's hard to put sole blame on anyone or anything like that. So I'm sort of joking when I say I'm out on him, but it is week in and week out. He seems to be the guy that's giving up big plays, big pressures, and this game is a great indicator of that. Sacks are not the only indicator of getting to a quarterback, because that entire first half they didn't sack Josh, but he was rattled. Josh was forcing throws, moving off his spot. He couldn't get his spot, couldn't get comfortable. Those pressures mattered. And for me, the leak continuously seems to be John Feliciano. I see Mitch Morse laboring to make up for John Feliciano a lot of the time, and it makes him look bad. We're having arguments about his, Morse as good as he should be. I think it's playing next to Feliciano. So frustrated. Again, though, I think hard to take a look at this whole unit because of the shifts and moves here coming out of the bye week. But and I think the run game, we talked about the running backs a little bit before, that overcommitment to the run game. I don't know that this team has the linemen, a mix of linemen to play an athletic run game or to play a physical run game. They haven't really defined what type of run team they want to be. And because of that lack of physicality, I don't think when they even have a good game plan where they want to come out and be physical, I don't think they got the guys up front to really play that way. And so, and they don't seem to have enough of the guys to play that athletic run game either. So I think moving forward, they have to define who they want to be as a run team and get the offensive linemen to represent that. But right now it seems like it's just kind of patched together.
That's a tremendous point. I think this Bills, and I want to reserve some comment about the offensive lineman until, really looking at the all 22. I feel like that's footage that really puts everything into perspective. But I think, Aaron, you are so spot on. Like this offensive line isn't athletic enough to fully commit to a zone scheme, and they're not physical enough to be able to fully commit to a gap scheme. They're like in this Bermuda
every other player is physical or athletic.
Yeah, it's this wishy-washy kind of like meh across the board in terms of that running game. And then adding it into Greg's point from earlier about what we were doing in the run game, you're just kind of overcommitting to it. Yeah, I am just not confident in this offensive line as a whole right now. And the only thing I dislike more than John Feliciano at left guard is John Feliciano at right guard, where he just seems to be worse over there. We saw it last year multiple times. He just doesn't seem to be able to move his feet well on either side, but he struggles more with it on the right. The hands of the face penalty was a big one, just out of, a lack of technique that we consistently see from him. And yeah, I thought the leadoff point in this topic here, Greg, you were spot on with, that's funny, is Forrest Lamb still out there? Miami's not going to have a bunch of raw stats up on the board, but they compressed the pocket. They kept Josh Allen hemmed in. They got him off his spot. They got him off his platform. And from a unit that came into this game, I believe they were 28th in the NFL in sacks per game at 1.7, and that wasn't just like a pure sack number. That's more indicative of the type of pressure they were generating up front, which was not a lot. And really, you only have to worry about Christian Wilkins and not much else. Not a good performance. I also, and I'll talk about this more in coaching, I didn't like the whole let's reshuffle everybody to get this one person in. I would have much rather just taken let's put a 1-for-1 in and try and course correct and protect that one instead of shuffling everybody in and out, which, I mean, not that it's always bad, but why you're inconveniencing 3 people instead of just trying to course correct for one. So disappointing in the offensive line once again, unfortunately.
So, but then let's flip it over to a better line for the Bills, the defensive side of the ball. I was super impressed. Let's talk Ed Oliver, and this might be another guy we have to save for that Uncle Jumbo Spotlight Player of the Game, because
honestly, we can go right to it now. We can go to our Uncle Jumbo's Player Spotlight right now.
I'll pull it up.
Because I think Ed Oliver deserves it. And you talk about the opposite of, or I guess the same logic as the Bills looking at Miami and be like, oh, well, they didn't really have many sacks. I'm looking at the box score, and it says Ed Oliver, 2 tackles, end of box score. Yeah. He dominated that game today and was blowing everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. Ed Oliver had a fantastic day today. He's not going to be my vote for Spotlight Player of the Game, but this is the type of game, disruptive-wise. He was disruptive on pass plays. He was disruptive in the run games. This was the projection that us Bills fans had for Ed Oliver when he was picked 9th overall. He flashed that projection, and I wasn't sure that he'd ever get there. And I'm not the kind of guy that always holds a player to where GM picked them, right? Like I don't always have that expectation on a guy, but I understand why people do. Ed Oliver at least flashed to me that it's there at the NFL level, and if he can ascend and continue to ascend at that type of level, that adds a whole new dynamic to an already top DVOA defense. Ed Oliver hasn't played like this. If you get that type of interior pressure, talked about it all off season, guys, how we got Rousseau and Boogie Basham, and that was going to create all these pressures, but we still needed the interior. That's where it matters the most. And you saw Ed Oliver do it. So I think definitely in the running for Spotlight Player of the Game, but I'm going with Cole Beasley. The type of game he had, allowed Josh Allen to get going, got that offense opened up, and that's what put the game out of hand ultimately. So I'm giving it to Beasley for sparking the offense and being the momentum shifter.
I love both of your guys' picks there. I love Beasley is my choice, but Aaron, I think you hit everything. And I love the idea of, the Bills finding a weakness and a mismatch and just spamming that mismatch over and over. Just to add another little person who I think deserves some spotlight and kind of gets not enough. Jerry Hughes had a very quality game today. Aside from that sack and forced fumble at the end, he was doing that all game. He just mistimed the snap when he jumped that to get
it was so close.
Well, and he was the reason that he had the Tua stepped up and it lost Ed Oliver's sack, but he was the reason that he turned the corner.
He had a strong game, and almost right on his coattails, Mario Addison in more of that, specialized pass rusher role, had some good stunts, had some good rushes around the edge, hitting the step drop of Tua. So nice performances from them. But yeah, it's Cole Beasley, hands down for me.
Yeah, but let's pivot back to the rest of that defensive line here, and I think that I joked pregame that when we saw Vernon Butler active, I was all right, maybe we're gonna be able to switch him into some playing snaps and up his trade value before tomorrow. He didn't. He did not do that. He still looked bad at playing football. So he can go back on the shelf for the rest of the season. Harrison Phillips had a couple flashes, and again, talk about a box score that doesn't indicate the presence of the game. Star Lotulelei, I mentioned his name 5 or 6 times. And
he's 2 steps in the backfield at the point of attack every time.
Over and over and over again. And, the fact that it's here, Andrew talking about it, Mario and Jerry and Star are 3 30-year-old, 30-plus-year-old defensive linemen. Ed Oliver was the star today. Like, he was the best defensive lineman on the field, maybe the best player on the field on that side of the ball. But it was nice to see the rest of the guys there. I'm curious to see the snap counts. Wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more from Epinesa and things like that. But when Jerry and Mario are making those kind of contributions, it's hard not to.
Yeah, I'm interested to see snap counts. I'm interested to see where the pressures are going to end up, PFF and CIS, and where they count pressures for this week. Because, again, I think, we talked about it with the Dolphins and how they were able to impact Josh with pressures that didn't result into sacks. Bills only had 2 sacks, but the way they were after Tua all day long, Jerry had 2 other, after he got that strip, he had 2 others that were close. He had an arm on Tua right there. And that, we argue it on Twitter. Do pressures matter as much as sacks? What really matters? Making a quarterback uncomfortable matters no matter where you're at. Tua threw for 53% in this game. He was just over 200 yards. He did not have a very good game. A lot of that came from pressures from the defensive line. And I think this unit set the tone for the defense to almost have a shutout of a day, another shutout of Miami Dolphins. This defense played fantastic, but the defensive line really set the tone, allowed the linebackers to play pretty free. We saw some nice play. We'll get into the linebackers. All that was set from the defensive line and winning in the trenches on that side of the ball.
Yeah, they won consistently. I love just how they were attacking Liam Eichenberg in the first quarter. He was just a constant turnstile at left tackle for Miami, and Addison was getting him. Jerry was getting him. AJ got him a couple times. I think this was just a complete game from a pass rush perspective from the defensive line. Again, not going to show up on the raw stats, but they made Tua uncomfortable. They didn't allow him to step into throws. They got him off his spot, which, again, it's nice to have the sacks, but I think pressures at times can be just as important as getting the sacks, and the Bills defensive line did that today. I am very interested to go into the all-22 and see what happened on those runs that we gave up for a couple big ones. It looked like defensive line wasn't maintaining some gap integrity and got washed out a bit. I know Tremaine got caught in that a little bit, but that was really the only critique and some negativity. But the Bills stepped up in the second half defensively against the run. I think they also brought a little more run blitzes, so it was nice to see from a coaching perspective. But, yeah, strong performance from the defensive line today, again, collectively. But we had the standouts really with Ed, Jerry, Mario, and just another solid quality performance from them. And I think we had a quality performance again on defense as we transition into the next grouping and talking about the linebackers. I hated that Tremaine Edmonds missed that open field tackle on Myles Gaskin, because I know everybody's gonna be like, see, he's garbage. I can't believe we're gonna pay him. Like, I was just like, oh, why? The one time. But Tremaine Edmonds, quality game, couple nice plays in the backfield, a couple nice sticks. Couple nice plays where he really read the blocking in front of him, shot the gap, and made some plays. And I also thought, from a coverage perspective, there were a couple times when he and Milano were getting sucked into that play action or that RPO look, and they were getting hit over the middle by Parker and Gesicki, but they corrected for that in the second half. But again, that's also tough. Like, you're caught in between in no man's land as a linebacker in that position, which was good scheming and coaching from Miami. But quality performance from Tremaine Edmonds, again, to stack another one on the resume. And Matt Milano had a couple big plays. Nice to see him returning a little more to form that he was at before the hamstring injury. I don't think he's all the way back from a performance perspective, but we saw him more in that disruptor role today, blitzing, timing blitzes, throwing off pulling guards, meeting running backs in the backfield, freeing up some things from the defensive line, and another strong day in coverage. So interested to dive into the all-22 and see more from them from a holistic perspective, but strong in the run, strong in pass coverage, another quality day from the Bills linebackers.
I love this group. I'm absolutely pleased with them. There were a number of plays where they were inches away from pass deflection, like especially early in this game. Miami got not so much lucky because they, Tua made nice throws, and
he made some really good throws in the first quarter.
He made some throws,
tight windows
where he beat the coverage, and I don't expect that out of Tua, to be honest. From a lot of the film I've seen on Tua, I don't expect him to really beat. He's more of an anticipation guy, not beating your coverage with the throw. Mm-hmm. He did it a number of times, and the Bills linebackers are so fast. I was really impressed that he was able to do that. But so those will count as receptions when we see PFF and some of the coverage grade stuff, but I thought they were very good in coverage. They were very good side to side. Tremaine's playing fantastic. I think he's picked up, I agree with you on that one tackle will be probably looked at and people talk about that all week, but he's playing at a really high level all around right now. And with these two playing at this level, and then back to the defensive line that we just talked about, man, this defense can continue to do really special things. Holding a team to 3 points in 2021, I don't care if it's the Miami Dolphins. That is an impressive task to hold the team to not score a touchdown in 2021. So this defense continues week in and week out, and it's led by these linebackers.
Yeah, and I agree. I was very, very pleased with that. I love some of the thump that Tremaine Edmonds was bringing. A lot of really like firm tackles, stopping momentum, and I had the exact same reaction you did, Anthony, on the open field miss. Just like, oh god, I'm gonna have to hear about that stupid play.
Not again.
Well, we got a Levi coming up that you'll probably talk about. The same, like, oh god, here we go.
I'm gonna go into it right now. It's really frustrating. I had a set of DMs and texts going to the couple of people that I talked to during most games saying like, oh my gosh, we got to switch Trey over onto Devontae Parker because he's picking on Levi Wallace. And my exact reaction was, I don't want him on Jalen Waddle either. I don't know what you do in some of these matchups when you're picking Julio Jones or AJ Brown, when you're picking Devontae Parker or Jalen Waddle. Like, physical elite athletes are not where, I don't mind Levi Wallace against a Keenan Allen or even a DeAndre Hopkins, like elite technicians were like, hey, I'll put his technique up against yours and just hope he's a sound tackler and rallies to the ball and does that. Some of these where it's just an elite athlete out there who people don't think of as a special wide receiver, like Devontae Parker. Right? Like, he's good. He's never lived up to his draft. I appreciate you, Paul. It really means a lot, man. But he's not special. Nobody's out there being like, oh man, we got to be careful with Devontae Parker. And then he puts up, a series of catches, and it ended up settling down. It's not going to look as bad as it did.
Trey
in the
gave
moment.
up a couple too. It wasn't.
It
was entirely picked on Levi. What? Go ahead. I'll let you continue.
No. It's not as bad as it seemed in the moment. But I got to say, in the moment, it's frustrating to feel like, I don't know what we do.
Yeah.
They can just go at him, and there's not much we can do about it because he's not special. Like, he can't stop a physical specimen.
Right. So the first play is probably the most frustrating emotionally because it was a long third down and he gave it up. It was actually really good coverage. Devontae Parker made a fantastic catch.
Great throw, great catch.
Great throw, great catch. Yeah, Tua, again, beat coverage with a really nice throw. Tough to do. It was good coverage. The one I had an issue with was the missed tackle. Right, he actually had fine coverage, and something that Levi hasn't been prone to do here is miss a tackle and then allow them to get the first down. That's one where I'm with everybody that hates Levi. Like, if you're going to be an adequate average cornerback too, you need to be consistent, which he has been, and you need to make tackles when you do give up receptions. Because if you're not going to make breaks on the ball, nobody better get by you. And that Levi's been very good at doing that. I think I counted maybe 3 receptions in this game that were his fault. And then he came back and did make a nice play on a long third down against Parker. And so he's still, I think Joe Marino talks about it a lot. If we watched other teams with the way that we watch the Bills, I think we would come away with what I've been saying the whole time, that this guy's an average cornerback too. I'd also love an upgrade like everybody else. The Bills haven't seen it out in the market, or otherwise they would do it. I think they've been making calls to upgrade at cornerback too, but they haven't seen an upgrade that they can get their hands on that have been able to assert Levi at this position. So I think, he'll be the talk of this game, even though, again, this defense only gave up 3 points. It was a 53% completion percentage from Tua. It's not like they got lit up. And we're going to talk about Levi being a problem at cornerback too, when ultimately I think it was 3 plays in the game, and 2 were probably bad, and 1 was just a great play by the other guy.
I think that's a large part of it too. Like, as at the end of the day, as good as we want the Bills to be or what we expect, they're still playing other professional football players on the other side of the field. So you're going to get guys who are going to make plays from time to time, regardless. I thought, Aaron, you were spot on. Like, that first one to Devontae Parker, tremendous catch by Parker. It was a hard catch. It was good ball placement from Tua. Levi was right there. We've seen that from him at times, just be in the right spot and not be able to make the play there, but then he responded further in the game. And Devontae Parker's a big physical specimen, the type of receiver who, regardless if it's Trey or Levi, Greg, as you mentioned, those types of receivers give the Bills corners problems because they are technically sound, but they are not physical specimens. They are not athletic freaks. Trey and Levi and the entire cornerback grouping are not a bunch of 4'3" guys or a bunch of 6'2" strong physical corners. They're technically sound, but you can lose out to physical guys when you come up against them. And Devontae Parker has been a guy who has had success against the Bills. He did it in week 2 last year, significantly on Tre'Davious White. He ate for a long time. Everybody talks about Fitz and Gesicki, but Parker put up numbers. I think it's unfair to continue to put onus on Levi a lot. I think he's a perfectly adequate, if not slightly above average corner 2 in today's NFL. And at the end of the day, who's got all pros everywhere, all around their team, and especially in the secondary.
This one's going to be easy tonight. Drive of the game.
Ooh,
My cousin called it. I mean, he literally text me as it happened, and that you go in and at the point of the game, you're talking about it's 3-3. The Bills come out, get a 3 and out on defense to start the second half. Like, all right, this is it. We're going to turn it around. The Bills go 3 and out, and okay, good Lord, what are you doing? Again, the Dolphins come back, go 3 and out, and it's all right, can we just get a little something going? And the Bills answer back with a 13-play, 80-yard touchdown drive that really, for the first time all game, 7 minutes and 6 seconds, for the first time all game, really felt like the superior team. And to just go straight down the field, this is the one that ends with the play-action touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis wide open in the end zone. I think that some of the defensive performances were impressive. The follow-up touchdown drive was certainly very, very good, but this was as emphatic, and I'm going to assume unanimous, of a drive of the game is what you can possibly have.
Yeah, there's no. I had written down early in the game when the Finns missed the field goal, the Bills kind of holding tight that might have the way the game was going. But then this one blew it away.
Yeah, this one was the easy choice. I really want to also credit that 3 and out right before that. So the Miami goes 3 and out, the Bills go 3 and out, Miami gets it. Miami goes 3 plays, -1 yards. That's the drive where the first play Tua completes that one to Gaskin, and Milano just blows him up behind the line, and then 2 incompletions for Tua. I thought that contributed as well, but there's there's nothing.
And then Miami went, I believe, 3 and out again.
Yes.
After.
Yes, three plays, 8 yards after the touchdown drive.
Yeah. How did Flores not get fired for just going for it on 4th down there? Like, you have gone 3 and out like 3 times in a row. You haven't gotten anything going. You're losing. You have nothing to lose. Like, how do you not? I don't care where on the field you are.
And it was 4th and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was short.
I wouldn't let him back on the plane.
Yeah.
You're walking.
They didn't pull any fake punts. Not like when that game started to slip away a little bit. Like, that's when you're a 1-6 team and you get desperate. And
Hell,
you just
the Bills tried the only trick play of the game with the double pass by Cole Beasley. Yeah. Like, talk about.
I was waiting for it at any moment. Like, oh, they're gonna fake punt here and like blow the game open, but they just don't have the balls.
So now into special teams. Once again, thank God we have Tyler Bass so that it's not just a complete disaster.
He's a boss.
He is fantastic.
He's a boss.
That 57-yard field goal, I'm going to be conservative and say it would have been good from 65. It was halfway up the upright.
Yeah.
From 57 yards.
Monster.
Like, that was a
It was not good
bomb.
weather today either. It was
not
in
a nasty wind. Yeah. That was a bomb. Absolute bomb. Really appreciate you. You guys are awesome tonight. We really appreciate it. Aaron, how did you feel about, let's say, the rest of special teams?
Well, so I really love Sarah Neal.
Okay, I take it back. Half and half. That's you want to know what? That's been that way all season.
Yeah.
Our special teams coverage and lack of returns. Anthony, that's awesome, man.
Thank you so much,
that's
man.
Fantastic. And you're darn right. that
was right there.
Always
my player of the game. Honestly, like, we don't spend any, so I always say I don't want to talk about special teams a lot, right? Because I just want them to come out and do their job. I don't know that we spend enough time talking about Tyler Bass, because I think he, there's a level of consistency that I want out of special teams, but then there's exceeding my expectations, a level of consistency. Like, he could have missed that kick and I wouldn't have thought anything of it. Like, we put him in a bad position to go out and kick outdoors in Buffalo in that kick, and he nailed it. There wasn't even any question. So I agree. He should be more in consideration for player of the game.
Nabil makes a perfectly reasonable comment because everyone's minds are so one-sided in punching.
Bojo doesn't hold that ball.
So every time this comes up, I will send you the clip of Mason Crosby screaming at Corey Bojorquez on the sideline in the Bengals game when Mason Crosby, for the first time in his career, missed 3 straight field goals in a game, screaming at Bojorquez because he's such a horrible holder. And I get it. He's got a cannon for a leg. The reason he wasn't re-signed is because he can't hold footballs. He's a horrible holder. Mm-hmm. So don't get me wrong. Matt Hawk is worse. Matt Hawk is a worse punter and worse overall player, because I think we can also find somebody who's a good holder and not a 19-yard punter. But Corey Bojorquez is also not the answer. So no, you do not want Boho back. He is also not the answer.
Yeah, no. And
please continue.
Yeah, punting. I don't want to we'll talk. You really said all I needed to say about punting, and then Isaiah McKenzie. This is one I want to talk about because he's had 2 kick returns for touchdowns called back and pretty ticky tack in that Titans game. I think that I'm not sure that influenced the play all that much. Like that was a legitimate touchdown return. We know the explosion's there, Greg. We got into it with Isaiah McKenzie himself on Twitter. He came after us, and all of his.
He's already in people's mentions today. By the way. He's already searching his name and went back and forth with Bradley Gilbert. I was
frustrated, and I typed out 4 or 5 different tweets and then removed his name and just was like, I'm done with, because I didn't want to deal with him coming into my mentions this afternoon and I also don't want to put that negativity out on him. That's a tough day for you as a player. I don't want to bring anything worse on him, but you cannot convince me. There's a lot of talk I heard in different content creation and Bill's talk that people are starting to feel confident in Isaiah McKenzie. When they were saying that, I said, he hasn't done anything to gain my confidence in the decision making yet. We talked about those bad games that he had early on and some of the stuff he did early on. He's had nice returns, but then he goes and muffs a punt and almost blows it and gives them a safety or a touchdown. It's not okay, guys. I would rather have Micah Hyde back there never returning or just letting balls bounce than having a guy that muffs punts. I just can't do it. I can't have those types. I'm a big toxic differential dude. I would almost consider adding a +2 when somebody has a punt that ends up in a muff, because that's like a 60-yard
the long play and the turnover. No, you're right.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it's everything.
Blink twice if you're being if you're being kidnapped.
Yeah.
Patton was just checking to make sure there wasn't a sign.
So I'm really not comfortable with Isaiah McKenzie there. I don't know that there's an answer on this roster. I don't know when Stevenson's eligible.
I would say Marcus Stevenson is the only actual potential answer.
Potentially. It could be worse.
No, yes. We don't know that he's an answer. He's also an unproven.
Yes,
yeah,
I'm the
Carlin.
king of if you think there couldn't be worse, you're wrong.
It can
Stevenson
always be
could
worse.
very much be worse. So I'm not saying we're not going to see more Isaiah McKenzie, but there's nothing that he can do right now for the rest of the season that's going to convince me to be comfortable with him back there.
Yeah, I think that, because I've said things about McKenzie on Twitter as well, and you get a lot of people who just
we're a group
who make
he's fun, and it's the same reason Feliciano, he sticks up for Josh Allen. But look, have you seen Isaiah McKenzie's fun videos that the team does? He's cool.
And I get, and that's fun and that's nice. And you get the people who talk about but look how explosive when he gets the ball. Both things can be true. He can be electric and explosive when he gets the ball in his hands. That is 1,000% true. He can also be very questionable in his decision making and his ball security when it comes to the return game. And
sounds like all my ex-girlfriends.
like where
there's highs and lows.
Yeah, there's highs and lows. Crazy and awesome.
It's a graph.
Yeah, I think that's what you live with if you have Isaiah McKenzie. You might get a fumble and it might come back to bite you, or he might take one for 25 yards or take it to the house. That is what you're living with him as a returner, and both of those things can be true.
Real quick, the people get into this idea of but don't they cancel out? No. If he just fair catches it, we have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Yeah. We have just as high of a likelihood of producing points and getting yards. If he turns it over, we don't have the ball. It is not, because some people tried to, I'd rather have a guy who gets an explosive play for every one that he has a turnover. No, we have an explosive offense. It's not a 1-for-1.
Real quick, the drive of the game that we just picked happens because the Bills didn't get a safety.
Yeah.
It ended up being a touchback.
He was very, very fortunate that was accurately called, and the rule is the momentum carries it into the end zone. It's not a safety. He was really lucky, because if Miami recovers that, it's a touchdown.
Yeah, that game's a different game, because that was the game, the drive that we're talking about.
They go up 10-3.
Drive. They go up 10-3. That's it, and we all felt comfortable. If that goes the other way, now we're really people are doing Leotis McKelvin type stuff on Isaiah McKenzie's lawn if that fumble goes the other way.
Yeah, it's a very he's all of a sudden become a very polarizing player amongst Bills Mafia, but I think that's what he is. You live with the good and you live with the bad, unfortunately, in both. And I love when he gets the ball in his hands. I'm like, oh man, he could take off right here. But when that ball's in the air, I'm definitely like, catch it and be okay. And today was another example of that. And to kind of pivot, I guess, now into the coaching piece, we've all spoken about different things at different points in the game. I'm going to lead off with the offensive play calling and I guess script to start the game. I was very confused. I did not. Greg, I want to start with your point that you mentioned earlier, the runs on 2nd and long. Nothing against Devin Singletary, nothing against Zach Moss. You see this type of play call for a variety of teams, college and in the NFL. The Bills do not have those running backs that can take advantage of those 2nd and long runs. We do not have those guys that can go 8 yards in the blink of an eye. And we also do not have the offensive line that is executing up front to be able to take advantage of that tendency breaking. I love tendency breakers on both sides of the ball. I think it's tremendous, but it's almost a net negative at this point to break the tendency because of what we're doing, like from a production standpoint, when we're running those seconds.
Use the example, if you're going to do that, do it on that crack toss where you get 2 offensive linemen out there where they're not expecting that kind of play. You're getting it out into space. You're at least trying something. This second and 2 inside draw, inside handoff, inside counter. What is that going to do? They have Raekwon Davis and Christian Wilkins against backup guards.
Yeah, we seem to run into like the weaker points of our offense. I was not a fan of that. And just, for a majority of the first half, and you got to give credit to Miami. I think they had a good, sound game plan. But it just looked like we were lost and in no rhythm in that first half. Josh Allen consistently was getting pushed off his spot, was not able to find time, and we were running almost the same type of plays over and over again. We were not taking advantage of the middle. We didn't seem to have an answer for them crowding the line of scrimmage and blitzing. They weren't even doing a lot of disguising. They weren't even coming to the line and then backing out of it. They were just blitzing over and over again, and we seemed to make no adjustments. Second half, much different story. Took advantage of the middle of the field, took advantage of the Cole Beasley matchup. And granted, in the first half, there were a couple throws that Josh missed that may have, turned the tide a little bit more. That big one to Sanders is one that I mentioned. But, I didn't like the offensive game plan to start the game against a Miami defense that has been very poor. And granted, there's a lot of things you could put into. Maybe the Bills are sleepwalking a little bit. Maybe Miami's extra geeked up for this game. And Miami did have a good game plan, and they do have some studs on defense. But, it was an interesting selection to start this game for the Bills offense, whether it was the amount of running that we were doing, the kinds of runs that we were doing, and the rhythm that we just seemed to not be able to get into. And again, it's a lack of course correction, almost similar to what happened against Pittsburgh, where we were like, no, we're just going to stick with it. We'll be fine. No, we'll just stick with it and we'll be fine. We seemed to do that in the first half against Miami, and it took getting to halftime to be like, okay, we got to switch things up because it's not working.
I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying here. I think when we do get a chance to look at the All-22 here this week, I think just like Dable and Josh Allen say all the time in their press conferences is, that first half looked bad, but it's not always as bad as it looks, and things aren't always as good as they look. I think when we look at what happened, it'll be sort of frustrating, like that run game video you guys did at the end of last season, where there's a little bit of everything. It's maybe some bad play calling in certain spots, lack of execution, Josh getting a ball batted at the line when he had somebody open, and just things didn't seem to get going their way early in that game. But I agree with the point you were making with the, Greg touched on it earlier, with these 2nd and 10 runs. Let's use Beasley in that situation, because this gives me what I want, which is getting Beasley the ball and getting a spark going. And he's always been that extension of the run game when they're unable to get the run game going. Get something short to Beasley going when you just can't generate first downs, because he's a first down machine. And so I'm happy the offense adjusted at half. That was something the Bills couldn't do for 20 years in the drought year. So it's great that we have a coaching staff that makes adjustments at half and can get this offense going in the right direction, because the second half, it was really Jekyll and Hyde of these two offenses from the two halves that we saw. And so it's hard to judge Brian Dable. I know he's probably going to get a lot of flack this week solely on that first half, because he did make the adjustments and got them back to a good scoring offense and covered the spread, just like we've been talking about all game. So it wasn't all bad. There's some stuff to clean up. The scary thing is this offense can put up 27 points and have a really bad half, one of the worst halves of football I've seen, and they're still explosive enough to put up 27 points.
I haven't seen Eli in the chats here, but Eli Padilla, one of our common listeners and always interacting on Twitter, he and I were having a good conversation earlier about how crazy it is with the disparity of, hey, they've scored 32.7 points per game. They've scored 229 points, and it's been inefficient and kind of ugly. and not as
meat on the bone every game.
not as
Not
clean
great in
as
the red
last
zone.
year.
Yeah.
Really poor red zone execution, and it's 229 points in
Tops
7
in the
games. It's just so weird to be in a spot where, one, it's right, same as our conversations with Isaiah McKenzie, that both can be true. You don't have to pick one or the other. The same with Brian Dable. We can praise his second half adjustments. We can praise the fact that he came out with some really good like tendency breakers, anticipating their blitz. He had a couple of really good ones on well-timed screens and well-timed
The lobs to Moss.
the lob swing passes, really well-timed, and have a really bad first half that was poorly designed and poorly planned. Those can both be true. It doesn't have to be all praise or all trash. He wasn't. Right. He was bad and then he was good. I think that it's interesting where you look at that, and math would tell you that there's more positive progression to the mean for Buffalo's offense, but it's also been really high scoring and really good. So it doesn't have to mean that. It could have some things step back in other areas and offset with higher efficiency, better red zone execution, and just still be 31, 32 points a game and really, really good. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're going to start 40 points a game. But I do think there's a couple 40, 50 burgers in them when they have one of the games that clicks, where they have the good execution and the good play calling with the talent and the individual performances. And I do think that today is a really good indication of where the floor of this offense is, where this was a really ugly game, really frustrating, a slog, and it was 26 points. And I just think that kind of shows what this team has. And Eric, another great one. I love spreading it out and then running. Spread it out, make some choices, and then give yourself the option to run into some lanes. So overall, I think that it's a frustrating start out of the half. But again, now Sean McDermott's 5-0 out of the half. They covered the spread. They have a dominant lead in the division. They got an important division and conference win.
They kept their 20 first down streak going.
20 first down streak.
Yeah, but we lost the
streak in
halftime thing. The halftime leads.
We lost halftime
sucks.
leads. So it's one of those things where it's important to have perspective. It doesn't mean today was perfect. It was not perfect. It doesn't mean today was the dominant start to finish win that many of us thought and anticipated, but ultimately it was a controlled, effective win that they end up, pulling off a pretty strong performance to win by 15 points and put their throat on the foot of an inferior football team. And that's where we're going to leave it. So, Anthony, what are your closing thoughts for the day?
When the Bills win, it makes me feel good. I enjoy my Monday mornings more. I enjoy my Sundays more. But no, there's something to be said, not even just to find a silver lining. There's something to be said for winning ugly and finding a way to win when you are not at your best. And
that's the saying of the Bills this year, right? Find a way.
That's what it is. Find a way. That's how you win. You see it in so many sports, especially football, where it's just a one-off, single elimination playoff format. The best team doesn't always win. If you can get beat at any point on any given Sunday at the right time, sometimes you have to find a way to win when you don't bring your best. I'm very excited to see what the potential is for the Bills to bring their best in a complete game somewhat going forward. But at this point, we're 5-2, very, very, very much alive for the 1 seed. If Carson Wentz doesn't decide that he doesn't want to win football games, maybe the Bills were able to, jump the Titans today. But the Bills are still in very good shape. This team is going to continue to course correct. It was nice to see the adjustments we got. I think what's very encouraging, again, the Bills are 5-2 and in very good shape. And we have yet to see a perfectly complete game of football from this team with an efficient offensive performance and an efficient, strong defensive performance. And when we do, it's going to be something to look out for. But right now, the Bills are finding a way to win games, and that's never a bad thing. Never a bad thing.
Yeah, my final thoughts, I just want to touch on, we didn't talk about defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier, and I'm getting a little frustrated that he's not in these conversations for head coach candidates around the league. His record and what he's been able to do with these Buffalo defenses and his tenure here, how he responds to his interviews and press conferences are my absolute favorite. every single
So
week.
Smart,
So
calming
well-spoken.
influence.
And the way he talks about his players, the way he divulges information to the media and is just open and honest, I think he checks all the boxes for a guy to come in and get your organization. If you're an unstable organization, needs a steady hand and a veteran leadership, he's that guy. And then his coordinating also is on par with anybody in the league at what he does. So I'm sick of him not getting the burn. It's offensive guys everywhere, and everyone wants that new young offensive coordinator. But I think we need to give Leslie Frazier his shine, because what he's done here with Sean McDermott's impressive. I don't care if it's Miami Dolphins. I don't care what Jacksonville Jaguars. You hold the team to 3 points in this league. That's huge. And they've been doing it with consistency, 2 shutouts, holding them to 3 here this week. A total dominant performance against the Miami Dolphins here again. So I just want to give Leslie Frazier his shout outs, and then a shout out to all of us who celebrate Christmas starting today and this evening. You're going into tonight. Merry Christmas to all of you.
And to you.
Enjoy it. We're going to start our Christmas off here. My kid requested Elf to be the first movie we watch, so we won't watch it tonight, but this week sometime we're going to start off with Elf. But Christmas music is going to be banging at the Quinn house tonight.
I love it. Prior to that kicking off, I hope people go out and enjoy. I'm going to go take my kids trick-or-treating.
Yes, I'm doing that.
Today's game, there were more treats than tricks, fortunately, and it was a fun way to do that.
If you are here, you can hear it.
I know, I hear it. I do hear it.
If you had more treats than tricks listening to us, then give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast feed where you're going in here. Take a quick moment and give thanks to the content that you're listening to, and leave us a review. It really, really means a lot. Sign up for a premium subscription. We've got a lot more fun things coming here. That's really the best way that you can do that, is to help support our sponsors like Uncle Jumbo's and West Herr and the Underdog Fantasy app. Be able to give us a review, go in and be able to share those things. Hi, Mom, love you. And
nice.
Be able to go in and enjoy a great game together. We're there as a community. The Cover One premium Slack channel, always having a good time. It's amazing on game days. Jump in there, have a good time. But on behalf of Anthony Prohaska and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.